To understand just how shocking my sister's secret wedding was, you need to know a bit about our family. We weren't just close, we were inseparable. Our parents raised us with the belief that family came first, no matter what. Growing up, we did everything together. Every birthday was a big deal, with themed parties and surprise gifts. Holidays were huge family affairs, with our cousins, aunts, and uncles gathering at our house for Thanksgiving and Christmas. We even had this tradition where we would all wear matching pajamas on Christmas morning, a tradition Amy and I absolutely loved. Amy, my older sister, was always my role model. From the time I was a little girl, I wanted to be just like her. She was smart, funny, and had this way of making everyone around her feel special. We shared a room until I was 10, and even after we got our own rooms, we would still have sister sleepovers, where we would stay up late talking about everything. We shared clothes, secrets, dreams, you name it. If you saw Amy, you saw me. That's just how it was. When Amy met Jason, I was thrilled for her. Jason was the kind of guy who made you feel like you were the only person in the room when he talked to you. He was always polite, respectful, and he had this contagious smile that could light up a room. He worked in finance, had a nice car, and from what I could see, he treated Amy like a queen. They went on vacations together, attended fancy galas, and he was always buying her these thoughtful gifts. Amy was happier than I had ever seen her, and as her sister, that made me happy too. But then, things started to change. Slowly at first, almost unnoticeably. Amy became more secretive. She stopped sharing details about her relationship with Jason. I would ask her about their plans for the weekend, and she would just shrug and say something vague like, "Oh, we're just hanging out." It was weird, but I didn't think too much of it. After all, people are entitled to their privacy, right? The real turning point came about 6 months into their relationship. We were having one of our rare family dinners, just me, Amy, and our parents. Amy was unusually quiet, picking at her food and barely engaging in conversation. Our mom noticed and asked if everything was okay. Amy forced a smile and said she was just tired from work. But I knew my sister. She was hiding something. Later that night, when Amy thought everyone had gone to bed, I heard her talking on the phone. Her voice was hushed, almost a whisper. I crept out of my room and stood in the hallway, just out of sight. I couldn't make out everything she was saying, but I caught enough to realize she was talking to Jason. "No, they can't know," she said, sounding almost panicked. "Not yet. It would ruin everything." My heart started racing. What was she hiding? And why did it sound like she was afraid of our parents finding out? I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I started paying closer attention. I noticed that she was spending less time at home, often staying over at Jason's place. When she was home, she would spend hours locked in her room, talking on the phone or working on her laptop. Our once frequent sister sleepovers had become a thing of the past. I felt like I was losing my best friend, and I had no idea why. Then, one weekend, when Amy was out, I did something I'm not proud of. I snooped. I know, it was a huge invasion of privacy, but I was desperate. I went into her room, searching for anything that could explain her behavior. I checked her drawers, her closet, under her bed. Nothing. I was about to give up when I saw her purse on her desk. I hesitated for a moment, then opened it. That's when I found it. A wedding invitation. My heart stopped. It was beautiful, with elegant calligraphy and a floral design. It read, "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Amy, last name, and Jason, last name, on June 15th. The date was only 2 weeks away. My mind was reeling. How could Amy be getting married and not tell us? Not tell me? We shared everything. I felt a rush of emotions, confusion, betrayal, anger. But the worst part was the guest list. There were a few names I recognized, some of Jason's family members, a couple of Amy's work friends. But our names? My parents' names? They weren't on it. We hadn't been invited. I stuffed the invitation back into Amy's purse, and rushed back to my room. My hands were shaking, and I felt like I was going to be sick. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her, tell our parents? I spent the rest of the day locked in my room, going over every possible scenario in my head. Why would Amy do this? Was she ashamed of us? Did Jason not want us there? That evening, when Amy got home, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I waited until she was alone in her room, then barged in. She looked up, startled. "What's going on, Amy? Why didn't you tell me you were getting married?" I blurted out, holding up the invitation I had taken from her purse. Her face went pale. For a moment, she just stared at me, as if trying to figure out what to say. Then, she sighed and sank down onto her bed. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said quietly. I could feel tears stinging my eyes. "Why, Amy? Why didn't you tell me? And why aren't we invited?" She looked away, avoiding my gaze. Jason and I wanted a small, private ceremony, just a few close friends and his family. We didn't want a big wedding, and honestly, I didn't think you could keep it a secret. Her words cut like a knife. "So you don't trust me? Your own sister? And what about Mom and Dad? They've always been there for you. Why are you shutting them out?" Amy looked torn, as if she didn't know how to explain. "It's not about trust," she said finally. "Jason and I just wanted this to be our day. I know how Mom and Dad are. They'd want to take over, make it about them. I didn't want the drama." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Drama? Amy, this is your family. We're supposed to be there for you, to support you. This isn't just about you and Jason. It's about all of us." She stood up, her expression hardening. "Well, this is what we want. I'm sorry if that hurts you, but it's our decision." I was so angry I couldn't see straight. "If you go through with this, I'll never forgive you," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "You're breaking up this family, Amy. And for what? So you can have your perfect little secret wedding?" Amy didn't say anything. She just turned away, her silence more painful than any words she could have spoken. I left her room, slamming the door behind me, and went straight to our parents. I couldn't keep it in any longer. They deserved to know. When I told them about Amy's secret wedding, they were devastated. My mom started crying, and my dad just sat there, looking like he'd been punched in the gut. They called Amy, demanding an explanation, but she refused to back down. She insisted that it was her wedding and her choice, and if we couldn't accept that, then we didn't have to be a part of her life. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. Our once happy home was filled with tension and silence. My parents were heartbroken, and I was consumed with anger and betrayal. I tried reaching out to Amy, begging her to reconsider, but she wouldn't even talk to me. It was like she had become a different person, someone I didn't even recognize. The day of the wedding came, and none of us were there. I spent the whole day in my room, looking at old photos of me and Amy, wondering how things had gone so wrong. Our parents barely spoke to each other, each lost in their own grief. It felt like we had lost Amy, and in a way, we had. She had chosen Jason and their perfect little life over us. It's been a year since that day, and nothing has been the same. Amy and Jason moved to another city, far enough away that we rarely see them. Our family gatherings are tense, filled with unspoken words and forced smiles. My parents try to act like everything is normal, but I can see the pain in their eyes. They miss Amy. I miss her too. We used to be so close, but now it feels like there's this invisible wall between us, one that I don't know if we'll ever be able to break down. I've thought about reaching out to her, trying to mend things, but every time I pick up the phone, I remember how she looked at me that night, with cold, indifferent eyes. She didn't care that she was hurting us. She only cared about herself, and that's something I don't know if I can forgive.